I visited twice and covered two times, and I have a fairly good idea what's going on inside the sit-in protest and what is happening outside the sit-in protest. You see, no one can basically accept the conduct that they have demonstrated. Islam doesn't preach of using abusive language against your opponents. To this extent, I think that is not acceptable. But there have been a lot of demands from, particularly coming from the residents of Rawalpindi and Islamabad, to do something to clear all those roads. But we have to see the position that government has taken. And I agree with the Interior Minister when he says that if you go for operation against them, it may not be that difficult, but there are political consequences of launching that operation against them. Reason being is, ruling party is already losing their traditional constituencies among our Brelvi sect of Islam. They have dented their votes. 7,000 they obtained in NA20, and then in Peshawar, probably the number was, by and large, was the same. If they launch operation against them, that means they are going to make hero out of them. They are going to give them a cause, and that is perhaps they are also looking for. I have spoken with the protesters, and if you look at their mindset, they've been completely indoctrinated. And they say, we are going to stay here no matter what is going to happen. We are going to lay down our lives. So why would government go for an operation where it would give a cause to their opponents? That means handing over electoral victory to its opponent. PTI, People's Party, everybody, including us, if we are now criticizing the government, and once the operation is launched and there are casualties, that means the government would come under fire, and that would be politically exploited. So, and then, as Interior Minister, that they have the reports that some of the protesters are armed with weapons. It may or may not be true, but one fact is very clear. The third force, internal and external, particularly internal, I would say, they would try to exploit the situation. If there is a firing from within the protesters when the operation is launched, and some policemen are killed, God forbid, and or the protesters are killed, then the situation would go out of control. There are reasons. This is the most sensitive issue in Pakistan's politics. And you might recall back in 1953 and onwards till 1974, 25,000 people were killed in clashes with security forces. Alone in Lahore, 10,000 people were killed as per Justice Munir's report.
That's right. We would also like to quote what Justice Muhammad Munir wrote at the time. I would like to remind you. He said that provided you can persuade the masses to believe that something that they are asked to do is religiously right or enjoined by religion, you can set them on any course of action regardless of their considerations of discipline, loyalty, decency, morality, or civic sense. He further said that. So right now we are seeing that these individuals who are protesting on Faizabad are actually, they have no sense of loyalty or decency or morality or civic sense as far as what they are demonstrating. So how does the government deal with this situation, Rana Saab? You're saying that on the one hand they're afraid of having casualties. For example, they had the Model Town incident hanging over their heads.
Red Mosque.
Red Mosque is another one, but that wasn't this government, by the way.
But we know the consequences are going to be the same.
But the thing is that these situations arose because of the inaction of the state. If, hypothetically, it's a question that had the state swung into action on the first day that these people arrived in the city, what would have been the consequences of that? I think they would have been able to handle them much more easily if they had tracked down the first day.
They could have been prevented from the cities they started their journey. That was one thing. But I think let's look at the bigger issue, which is the how the government tried to fiddle with the legislation. We have to accept the reality when we talk of democracy in Pakistan. When we talk of the law and the constitution in Pakistan, then I think we should respect the values and the religion and the religious beliefs of the majority of the people in Pakistan. This is let's be very dispassionate. Now the government basically, first they changed the oath, which was essentially was designed to discreetly allow members from the non-Muslim Qadiani community to become members of the parliament. And then they repealed the two clauses of 2002 political order, which means if there is a legal dispute, about somebody who wants to register himself as a Muslim voter and he's not, and some objections are raised, there would not have been any provision of law to deal with that kind of situation. So there were clear tactics which were applied by the government to mainstream Qadiani group as Muslims. Now that would have been the violation of second constitutional amendment, which clearly declared them as non-Muslim. Why they were declared? Because it was the hate literature. The entire Muslim population, the world over, including Pakistan, they were declared infidels for defying not to accept Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani as their prophet. So there are serious critical core issues because of which there was a lot of resentment. And as I pointed out earlier, 25,000 means it's a huge number of people who died in the clashes. And in 74, the last incident when it happened, then the attack came from the Qadiani community against the Muslim students who refused to accept their literature. So there are we talk about this clergy, we criticize them, and for genuine reasons. But at the same time, we also need to look at the other side. They are also, in the past, proven themselves to be extremists. They had no right to declare the entire majority Muslim population from all sectors as non-Muslim, to declare them infidel. Now, I think the government has all bad options. Some are worst, some are worse, and one of them is a bad. And that is demand not only from the clergy, but also from all the opposition parties, from People's Party, from PTI, let the law minister resign. The reason I'm saying this, because he was in charge of the 44 amendments that were introduced in the Election Law, Act 2007. He was overseeing everything. And if there was an oversight, and obviously it was, on his behalf, then I think he should resign. And he himself said, nobody can say that it was a clerical mistake. Deleting 2 provisions wasn't a clerical mistake. That was what the Speaker of the National Assembly said. And he said, no, it was actually designed to simplify the legislation, the scheme of legislation to simplify the oath. I think things are not so simple. People know who's behind it. And essentially, the ruling party has been trying to basically address the Western concern because the Qadiani community, they have done a lot of homework in the Western world. They have lobbied and they got the government pressurized to do something. And the government was on its way. And in Punjab, I think there are some of the opposition members, they have blamed them that 60 schools were handed over to an NGO which was linked with some Qadiani group. So now we can ignore all these issues while sitting here. But if you go outside, people talk about it. I have spoken with them. I have listened to them, and I think the best option in this given situation, going by the demand from all opposition parties, the law minister should resign, and we can bring an end to this, all these problems in Islamabad and Pindi.
Of mixing politics with religion, what kind of outcome are we expecting when we do this kind of, when we do mixing of these 2 separate entities? Would you like to please share your views on that?
Mixing of politics in religion and mixing religion into politics.
And using it for their nefarious agendas.
Using it for political purpose. You see, it has been part and parcel of our politics, not only after the creation of Pakistan, but before the creation of Pakistan. I interviewed Sartaj Aziz, and he said, Jinnah Saab came to our college, and he wanted us to become the soldier of Islam, to create a country in the name of Islam. When you created a country in the name of Islam, campaigned under the slogan of Islam, and then after creation of the country, you expect that we will keep the politics aside and religion aside, that was next to impossible. More than 1 million people died in the process of migrating from India to this part of United India, which later on became Pakistan. So I think when we talk mixing politics into religion, we talk basically that's a more Western phrase where they have a secular system.
No, but what we are witnessing today, sorry to cut you, sir, because what we are witnessing today is very much similar to the Spanish Inquisition that took place in medieval Europe. So right now we have people accusing each other of being non-Muslims or infidels. When is this going to stop? Tomorrow somebody says that you're not a good enough Muslim and decides to kill you. Will you have an explanation?
There has
have a
to
good
be
explanation for that.
They have to apply brakes.
In case of
they have to apply brakes. Now here the point is, the government since has been mishandling this entire issue. First, they should not have done it. You just look at the scenario which built up. It was Sheikh Rashid who pointed out, and he said, tomorrow the Sharif family would not be able to move out of their homes. People are going to attack them. That was his language. So it is not just the clergy which has been using religion for politics.
Of course.
All other
politicians, political parties, all of them.
Liberal and the secular parties. And the government came under pressure and they restored the original oath. Now, at that particular point of time, they should have also restored two other provisions of the political order of 2002. They did not, because they thought this is sufficient to satisfy the public. But again, when this sit-in protest started, then they restored other two provisions which deal with the regulating the second constitutional provision under which the Qadianis were declared non-Muslim. So the very intent and the intentions of the government seems to be very unclear. Political motives to amend the law in a manner to make the second constitutional amendment redundant, not effective enough to regulate this entire minority religion. Because in Pakistan, you see, there are not problems of Muslims with other minorities as such.
Really?
Not as such.
Right.
The extent to which, I mean, the intensity of the
unbelievable.
The intensity.
Entire towns have been,
no, I'm talking,
has been settled.
There are problems, but not to this extent.
Right. This is an extreme case.
This is a very extreme case.
Right.
So the reason being is that since they continue to call themselves Muslims and they continue to preach their religion, because of which there have been reactions from the society. People take law in their hands. Police generally, they don't listen to them, or they don't actually believe in the police that they would take action. So in a very broader picture.
But unfortunately, you haven't really answered my question up till now, Rana Saab. My question was that what are the far-reaching effects of mixing religion with politics? Now, without the historical context that you have given us, that's besides the point. We're talking about the future. We're talking about Pakistan's progress, joining the world in the 21st century, being a progressive country. Now, do you think that such regressive ideas that are being purported or projected in Faizabad are the kind of ideas and sort of impression that they are giving to the rest of the world? Is that what we stand for as Pakistanis?
I have strong reservation. The language, the choice of the words, that the clergymen have
religion as a tool. Religion as a tool.
Two or three or four people have lost their lives because those people did not allow them to go to the hospital.
You see, it is on the record. The PTI, before 2013 elections, they said they are going to further Islamize Pakistan. It's on the record. Zulfikar Bhutto was secular. He was the one who declared them non-Muslim. And
experiences.
Absolutely. We agree with you there.
And very dispassionate assessment, I think the fact of the matter is that we have a choice between a democratic Islamic state of Pakistan, which we are now, and a theological Islamic state. So we have to resist the theological Islamic state, which manifests itself in the form of Taliban, in form of Al-Qaeda, in form of Daesh, or so many other groups. Now, when we talk of democratic Islamic state, that means the democracy in Pakistan. We need to defend it. And when we talk of that we should separate religion from the politics, that's not possible. Even Allama Iqbal,
I don't see why you said that that's not possible. Everything is possible if you have the will to make it possible.
Secular Pakistan.
No, it means that you don't have to be waving your religion in my face or in everybody's face.
That is a misuse of politics.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's the misuse of religion. Now, the longest system in the living history was 13th century old, was the Islamic system. Though I think it was not an ideal, because in Islam there is no kinship, blah blah blah. But the point is, it stayed there. A century ago, there was a Khilafat, and that is what Allama Iqbal, actually he had that kind of vision, that there could be democratic Islamic states in many parts of the world, and some state they could have some sort of confederation.
That was his vision.
Isn't ijma a very central concept of Islam?
It is.
Then what is it? Isn't it democracy?
That is it.
Isn't it?
That is
we don't have it here.
We don't have, it is an evolving situation.
I would like to get Shuaib's